Testing. Testing. Okay, I'm getting the volume right again here. Trying not to have it duplicate on my computer with the two windows open. Testing. I'm getting the volume right again. Oh, that's here. Okay. Why is it stuck? Okay. Make sure that this is working properly. All right, got that. And this, 3 people. All right, welcome to the webcast for tonight. Hi, interpersonal communication students. If you are joining, can you just please type your name in the chat so that I can see who's here? I don't have anyone here yet, so I am just going to wait for a few minutes to see if anybody else joins us. Hi, Sally. Thank you for joining. I will get started in a minute. Hopefully we'll have someone else come and join us as well. All right, so Sally, do you have any questions for me before I just jump into giving a whole rendition of what the paper is about? Okay, cool. Well, since this is recorded and others can watch it another time, I'm just going to go ahead and jump in for sake of time. So for the media analysis paper, which is what I wanted to talk about tonight, there are a couple of main things that students have made mistakes on that I think would be helpful for you to understand. The biggest mistake that students make is leaving out an entire section. So looking at the paper rubric, making sure that you have an introduction, you address the friendships, you address love, you address a work or family relationship, address relationship theories, and you have a conclusion. If you don't do one of those things, I can't give you points for it. And so that's like an easy way to miss a big section of the grade. So that's the biggest overall question that seems pretty simple, but it's more of like a checklist type of thing, and it can even be helpful to add headings within your paper to make sure that you're addressing all of it. Within each section, I have a couple of tips for you. It's best in the introduction to go over which show that you've chosen, what characters you're focusing on, and what concepts you're going to cover in the paper. Give a preview of where you're going rather than a synopsis of the show or background of the characters. Be sure to use shows from the list that is provided. Grey's Anatomy, This Is Us, Suits, Modern Family, Blackish, or Parenthood. And if you have a question about wanting to use a different show, then email me and I could possibly approve that, but stick to the approved list is best. So once you do the introduction, you're going to choose to write about a friendship relationship within the show. I think the biggest challenge that students have made in the past is trying to discuss a romantic relationship as a friendship relationship. So I would suggest staying away from that and choosing a true friendship relationship. Sometimes if choosing, say, Modern Family, there are some friends that happen across family members, but I would, again, stay away from like siblings as friends, but think about maybe like in-laws or people that are more true friendships rather than family members. You can address the other parts later in the paper. So when addressing the friendships, you want to look at the three friendship types: associative, receptive, and reciprocal, and be sure that you describe which one you think it is, why you think it's that friendship type, and if you think that's a beneficial or healthy friendship type. Try to go beyond just a basic description, but provide some examples that support why you've written what you've written, and use some critical thinking in order to kind of ask yourself, like, could this relationship be better for what reason? What might they be able to do to move it from receptive to reciprocal? Is there some other dynamics going on around them that makes it kind of stay in the place where they are? Are there any communication behaviors that are keeping them within that type of friendship? So you can use and draw upon your communication expertise that you've gained this semester to add more value to that section. And moving on to the love section, we are talking about the 6 types of love from your text: eros, ludus, agape, storge, pragma, and mania. And so you want to just pick one of those. The biggest challenges students have had in this section is trying to address multiple types of love within one section of the paper. So you might say, for example, in the TV show Suits, Donna and Harvey have eros love. But they also show agape love and pragma love and all these other types, right? But I'm going to focus on how eros impacts their relationship, right? So then you would focus on that one. So you can address that there's multiple types, but just focus on one. And again, you want to discuss, is it healthy? Is it helpful to that relationship? What are the impacts of that type of love? How is it expressed? And give some examples of that. Then in the work or family relationships, when you're looking at workplace relationships, the 2 main types you could address are mentoring or a networking type of relationship. So try to be specific in the terminology there. You could look at how a workplace relationship is bridging into a romantic relationship, and so that's a specific relationship type. But if you want to look at family dynamics, you can look at those 4 different types of families: consensual, pluralistic, laissez-faire, or protective. And you would talk about the level of conversation and the level of conformity, how you think that's impacting the characters that you're focusing on, if you think that's helpful, if you think that's a healthy way to deal with things, and make some recommendations for or describe why they are operating the way that they are. You could also look at couple types, looking at independent couple types, traditional couple types, or separate couple types. So you would look at just a couple and describe what couple type they are, and again, if you think that's healthy and how that's working for that particular relationship. Again, within this, you only want to pick one to focus on, not multiple ones. You want to try to go more in depth on one rather than covering a lot. And then lastly, this is usually the hardest part for most students, is the relationship theory section. And so this is why I asked you to do the relationship theory assignment this week, so that you can identify what those theories are and make sure that you know them, and then apply one to your life before you apply it to characters. So in this assignment, you're asked to state a theory, describe what it is, just like you did in the assignment this week, and then apply it to a relationship that you see in the show. Give examples of how it's happening, and then make any recommendations that you have based on that theory or other communication tools that you have. So for example, if you say, in the TV show Modern Family, attraction theory is being kind of thwarted or contradicted by the relationship between Haley and her new boyfriend, who's the scientist, because they have different levels of physical attractiveness. He's much more intelligent than she is. They don't seem to have a lot in common. They haven't spent a lot in proximity together. According to attraction theory, her romantic partner really should be with her sister Haley, who is really struggling with that, right? So she would fall into the desire for attraction theory. However, there are other things that draw them together. And so you could describe what things do build their relationship and why. And then you would say, in order for them to continue on in their relationship, what things might they need to do to continue to build that bond if they don't have those similarities? So what kind of foundational things could they move forward through? Again, so if you pick a relationship in a show that has tensions in it, you're focused on dialectical tensions, you might name the tension, like they're struggling with autonomy versus connectedness, and this is why. So they need to rebalance their relationship, or they need to use iMessages to discuss that. So again, this is the only section where you're really asked to make some recommendations for the characters to improve. And so this is your opportunity to show what you understand about communication. You can draw upon any lesson to give communication tips to those characters. And then you would wrap it all up with a traditional conclusion to the essay. Again, reviewing where you've been, why that matters, and kind of leaving us with your thesis statement. So that's the paper. I think it's pretty straightforward as long as you hit all those areas. And just remember to go in depth. So that is the basic overview. Do you have any questions, other questions or comments? Okay, so that is about it for the paper. I think that you're going to do a good job and hopefully have fun watching some show and thinking about what you want to do in a way. What are the family types of relationships? Okay, so this is in chapter 10, and it's consensual family relationships, laissez-faire, protective, and pluralistic. I don't have my textbook sitting with me. I took it upstairs. But they're all on one particular page in your text that you can find in chapter 10. So you can see those lists there. And along with the family types in chapter 10, they talk about the different couple types, which are separate, traditional, and independent couple types. When you're thinking about the family types, I think it's kind of cool to draw a like spectrum where you would see the level of conversation and the level of conformity that's desired. So for example, a protective family type would have low conversation but high desire for conformity, which means that they are going to put a lot of pressure on people to do the same things but not really talk about it. And so if somebody chooses to do something different from the family values or norms, it's going to be like kind of a hush hush. We don't talk about it, but that person might be shunned, pushed out, ignored until they conform. In contrast, a consensual family is going to have high conversation and high conformity. And so although that family type really wants the people to conform with one another, they're going to debate about it, discuss it, try to convince the people to come to their side and talk about the differences that they're having and try to get people to agree. So that's the difference between protective and consensual. A pluralistic family is going to have high conversation but low conformity. And so this means that people are open to disagree, have different values, have different lifestyles, have different ways of going, but they're still gonna spend a lot of time together, talk about their thoughts, feelings, desires with one another, and support one another in their differences. A laissez-faire family is going to support one another in their differences, but they're also going to not really talk about that. It's kind of like, do your own thing, but don't really engage with what I am doing. So they don't spend a lot of time hashing it out. Other questions? Great. Okay, so the only other thing that I wanted to share tonight is that I've been reading the relationship discussion boards, and a lot of you are sharing very personal and difficult things that have happened in your life, and I just want to thank you for being vulnerable and willing to share those occurrences. And I do know that there's value in using your voice and sharing those things with other people. And for those of you that are giving responses, you're being very supportive to one another, and so I really appreciate that. So I'm going to conclude there, since Sally, you don't have any other questions and it's just us. But if other people end up tuning in at a later date or a later time to watch this, then you can find these tips. And just again, feel free to email me any questions. Have a good night.